Nintendo is doing the unthinkable. They are once again remaking Ocarina of Time for a new generation, even though this is a bit of a risky move. But they pulled it off before successfully on the 3DS more than 15 years ago. However, I think there's a reason why they are doing this again. Nintendo wants to completely overhaul the infamous Zelda timeline. There's evidence of this everywhere, and it can even give us an idea of what exactly Nintendo will do. Long ago, when The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was first released, the franchise was, in many ways, still in its infancy. Many core concepts, items, ideas, gods, and themes weren't fully fleshed out yet. Only in the second Zelda game we saw the full Triforce. And in A Link to the Past, the Master Sword's origin states that ancient Hylian smiths and sages forged the blade at the command of the gods to protect the Triforce, which was later on completely retconned in Skyward Sword, where we saw the true origin story for the Master Sword. However, in Ocarina of Time, all the way back in 1998, Nintendo established some of the most important lore we had ever seen in the Zelda series. For example, the Ocarina of Time, and summoning magical powers through music, as well as truly establishing the dynamic between Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf. Heck, even the Gerudo were finally introduced, as well as the concept of a male being born once every 100 years, leading to the rise of Ganondorf again and again. But especially the ending of the game was crucial for the entire franchise, and even affected every other game in the series. As we all know, in this game we see time travel, with Link traveling between the past and future constantly in his quest to save the world. It all started when Link finally collected the 3 spiritual stones that were required to open the door of time. Now, as the chosen hero, he was able to draw the Master Sword from the pedestal of time, opening the door to the sacred realm where the all-powerful Triforce could be found. The one artifact that can make any wish come true. But due to Link being too young to wield the Blade of Evil's Bane, he was sealed in the sacred realm until he was old enough. This allowed Ganondorf to try and make a wish, but this failed due to the imbalance of his heart, splitting the Triforce into 3 pieces, with each piece going to the person that best represents it: Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf. Now when Link wakes up, he's all of a sudden an adult, and using the Master Sword, he can travel between the past and this new future. In order to save the world, he needs to free the sages and confront Ganondorf, which ends with the new evil king of Hyrule being defeated. But here, something interesting happens, because all the potential outcomes of the finale of this conflict led to timeline splits. Different universes that all have a history of their own, which sometimes reshape the world completely. In the adult timeline, Link defeats Ganondorf and is sent back in time to his childhood, and due to this, there was no hero. In the child timeline, the Link who was sent back warned Zelda about Ganondorf's evil plans of stealing the Triforce, preventing those events from happening. And in the downfall timeline, Link failed during his final fight against Ganondorf, and the evil ruler obtained the full Triforce before being sealed away in the Sacred Realm. All of this is covered in the original Zelda timeline. However, this has put some strict rules on the lore of the Zelda series, which is something Nintendo constantly has to think about. So getting rid of that, or transforming it in a way to make their life easier, would actually be great. And this is something they have been working towards since the launch of Breath of the Wild almost 10 years ago. Now, when Breath of the Wild released, many were in awe of the huge open world we could now explore for the first time in a Zelda game, with the boss being accessible immediately. However, as usual, die-hard Zelda fans and Zelda tubers like me wanted to find out as soon as possible in which timeline this game takes place. At first, when the Great Plateau was only available, people started looking at anything and everything to find out where it would fit. For example, the description of rock salt mentions it came from an ancient sea, and so people started linking this game to the Wind Waker right away. But in the end, Nintendo fooled us all, because at this point, they were already working on retconning the entire lore of the franchise. In Breath of the Wild, during Link's ceremony, Zelda basically confirms that they know about every single timeline. For example, she says, whether skyward bound, adrift in time, or steeped in the glowing embers of twilight. And she also says, is, whether the hero crosses the sea or creates a link to the past, may you always be at his side. So it is clear that Nintendo didn't want to deal with a timeline placement and decided to mention them all. These were already early signs that Nintendo wanted to retcon the series, or at least simplify it in some way. Before the official timeline's release, speculating about the order of events in the world of Zelda was a huge thing in the community, and it seems like they want that vagueness to return. And in the game set after Breath of the Wild, they took it a step further. At first, the only thing we encountered that was made by the Zonai were old cities and armor sets, but really we knew nothing about them. But in Tears of the Kingdom, we found out that they are an ancient tribe who came from the heavens and are said to be descendants from the gods. In the end, the Zonai civilization came to an end with only 2 remaining, and so Rauru married a Hylian named Sonia, and together they founded the Kingdom of Hyrule. And so Zonai blood would continue to flow through Rauru and Sonia's descendants, the royal family of Hyrule. Now this was quite the retcon, and changed the origin story of the kingdom itself. So it was clear that Nintendo was altering the lore of the franchise in massive ways in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But I will say we have seen stuff like this before, which didn't necessarily lead to a retcon of sorts. For example with the Oka or Minish. Both of them came from the sky and played a big role in shaping the world. In Twilight Princess, it's said that the Oka created the Hylians and the Minish gave the people a relic that was incredibly similar to the Triforce. So really Nintendo can be very inconsistent. But it seems like they were very deliberate with their choices in the most recent Switch titles. And this is something we see in different franchises as well. Many, if not all comic book series out there will reset the universe at some point or start a new era, allowing them to simplify the story a bit, which gives them the freedom to once again craft new narratives and arcs while not being bogged down too much by the mountains of lore from the past. So what could change in the Ocarina of Time remake that makes Nintendo's life and the lore of the franchise easier and less complex? Well, they could actually do a lot. When I was watching the Nintendo Direct and the teaser trailer of Ocarina of Time was shown, the thing that stood out to me the most was the tapestry itself and the exact words that Nintendo used. In many ways, it seems like the story is told from the perspective of someone who didn't witness the events firsthand. Instead, it is a legend that is being retold. This is something Nintendo has always done. Think of the intro of The Wind Waker, the mural explaining the conflict that happened at the beginning of Tears of the Kingdom, and the tapestry that covers the fight against Calamity Ganon. And this kind of storytelling device actually allows Nintendo to do almost anything. They can always claim certain portions of the story were lost, for example. This is something we saw in Age of Imprisonment. Here a portion of the story that was crucial was lost, and Nintendo just decided to introduce it. And in Breath of the Wild they did a similar thing. In that game there was a tapestry and a prophecy that could be interpreted in multiple ways. King Rome said, "The signs of a resurrection of Calamity Ganon are clear, and the power to oppose it lies dormant beneath the ground." Now, due to this, the Hylians and Sheikah began digging, and found the old Sheikah technology beasts and robots that had defeated this great evil in the past. However, with Tears of the Kingdom being out now, we can also look at this prophecy in a different way. The power that was spoken of could have also been Ganondorf's corpse that was leaking malice and gloom right below Hyrule Castle. He was the source of Calamity Ganon after all, and as we can see in Breath of the Wild, he rose from Hyrule Castle. So maybe the interpretation of the king was wrong. Clearly this kind of storytelling, with it being shrouded in myth and legend, allows for small inconsistencies. All of this makes Nintendo's life much easier and gives them more space to move the story in different directions. And it seems like they are once again going for a similar setup with the new Ocarina of Time remake, using the tapestry as a malleable story device. But what exactly could change about the story? Well, obviously, almost everything could be altered. However, I expect that the big story beats will remain the same. However, some small details could be changed, but also major ones. One good example could be Rauru, a wise sage who guides Link in his owl form and gives Link the light medallion. Now in the original game, as well as the 3DS remake, remake, he looks like some ancient monk that was clearly inspired by European culture. However, as we all know, there's a completely new Rauru in Tears of the Kingdom, a Zonai who was one of the founding fathers of Hyrule. Now, we don't know whether this was truly the start, because as far as we understand from Skyward Sword, the founding of the kingdom began with Link and Zelda after Demise was defeated. But still, Rauru seems to be an important character that Nintendo has now introduced alongside the godly Zonai race. So we might actually see the Zonai Rauru in the Chamber of Sages instead of the old one, cementing the Zonai and potential new founding of Hyrule into its story. I even saw some people online joke about this, but there's actually a chance that they will do it. However, that would only be a minor change compared to the main issue they will try to tackle, the timeline split. Nintendo's main struggle has always been the timeline split, which is something they probably regret introducing, and so they need to get rid of it. And actually, they've already done some of the required work more than 15 years ago. Back when Skyward Sword came out, Nintendo once again started playing around with time travel, specifically Gates of Time. These allowed you to travel to the era just after the goddess Hylia's fight with Demise, and these play a big role in the game. It even allows Girahim, the right hand of the Demon King, to bring Demise back, even though in the present era he was destroyed by the Triforce. However, in the end, all these gates are destroyed, closing the portal that existed between these two timelines. Due to this action, there's no split or alternate universe here. There isn't some world out there where Demise was already defeated and Link never had to rise up and become a hero. Nintendo kind of prevented that, and they could do a similar thing with Ocarina of Time. At the end of that game, Zelda asks you to lay the Master Sword to rest and close the door of time, which closes the road between times. Now, Nintendo could use this concept to get rid of alternate universes completely. By opening these doors and closing them, they could argue that these alternate outcomes never truly materialized, getting rid of timeline splits as well as the concept of multiverses, because these alternate outcomes disappear in the end. This is actually a concept they have used in the past. In Link's Awakening, for example, Koholint Island is set in a dream world and disappears after Link finishes his quest of awakening the Windfish. And while this wasn't known at first, in Majora's Mask, the world of Termina is also a creation of Majora and the Skull Kid, which disappears shortly after Link leaves. Nintendo introduced this some time ago, which in many ways was also a form of a retcon. However, worlds and alternate universes like this do give Nintendo all the freedom to explore stories while not creating future burdens and complexity that could bog down the story. I think the chances of this happening are incredibly high, while still following the same story as the original for the most part. And with a reset like this, Nintendo can continue making games without the burden of 30 years of lore. But we actually covered a lot of that lore. For example, how often has the full Triforce been used? What is the Zora armor made of? What happens to all the Sky Islands that appear in Zelda games and then disappear? And who actually created the Stone Talus? If you want to know more about those topics, be sure to check out the videos. Aside from that, I stream here on YouTube every week, so come hang out. And don't forget, be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss any future videos.